Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit 501c3 whose mission is to help keep dogs out of shelters by educating and supporting their humans. We promote positive method of training and behavior modification through stress-free methods. As part of that mission, we offer free webinars like the one you're about to watch. Subjects range from dog behavior, stress-free training, and other tools to help you understand your relationship with your dog. If you like the webinar, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Click the notification bell and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when future videos are posted. Now enjoy the webinar.
Welcome to today's webinar on how to teach your dog to come even around distractions. We are very pleased to have as our speaker, Lyle Waggoner, author of the original Rocket Recall, Teach Your Dog to Come. Lisa is also a certified professional dog trainer, knowledge assessed, a certified separation anxiety trainer, and a Pat Miller certified trainer, level 2. She is the founder of Cold Nose College in Murphy, North Carolina, and is on the faculty of the Victoria Stilwell Academy for Dog Training and Behavior. Many of you may not know that Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit and that your donations help support these webinars and our other free services. Please consider going to the homepage of our website, yourdogsfriend.org, where you will see a donations icon in the top right corner. We appreciate your support. I know that we will all learn a lot today, and it's all yours, Lisa.
Thank you, Deborah. I really appreciate it. Before I start sharing my screen, I'm scrolling through the pages here of people, and I'm seeing some familiar names. So there's some old friends here, and hopefully I'm making lots of new friends today. But thank you all so much for joining me. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Oh, and let me say before I get started, I've had a cold and cough for a couple of weeks. It's still with me. It's hanging on. So I'm armed with lemon juice and honey, but I'm still coughing some. So it's likely that I'll mute myself and do what I need to do if I start coughing. So just bear with me with that, if you would, please. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about recall today. Not only recall, but we're going to talk about some things that are really important if you want to get to a really successful recall, especially around distractions. Thank you, everybody, for being here, giving up part of your hours on a Saturday afternoon. And for those of you who will end up watching the recording, thank you for being here as well. I can't imagine there aren't dogs or cats or other companion animals beside of you. So please do welcome them too and make them part of the family. Ask them to join you. I wanted to do a poll, but I'm not able to do that. But if you would, just in the chat, type for me, if you would. I'll look at it later. If you are a shelter worker, a trainer, a dog lover, kind of to tell me, what's your involvement with dogs. That would be helpful for me after the fact. So here's what's ahead. I've broken this webinar down into 2 parts, all happening today. As normal, I have too many slides for the amount of time I'm going to present, but I'm going to go through the first few thirds of the slides pretty quickly because I did a webinar for Your Dog's Friend on focus and attention. And while I'm going to be repeating some of that information, you can get all the details from that prior webinar, and Deborah will make sure she gets that webinar link to you. We're going to talk about how this protocol came about, concepts that I believe are really important. You're going to see videos and photos of training exercise. We're going to talk about games that will help you strengthen the recall once you've trained it. Learning never happens in a straight line, how to solve training problems. Talking about what do we do with prey? Oh my gosh, how do I get my dog to come back from a squirrel or a deer? And then the 12 rules of Rocket Recall. Learning objectives are understand my training philosophy, kind of grasp the concepts I believe are vital to supporting the protocol, what rocket recall means to me, some finished behavior examples, and of course, games, foundation games, and the recall training games. If you have my book, you've read my journey and how my philosophy came about, but I'll give you the Cliff Note version. I didn't come to positive training right off. I used aversive training in the beginning. A pinch collar and a choke collar was handed to me and I was told how to use it effectively. So Abby was my first dog who, at one point in time, when I did a leash jerk on her, I saw something in her eyes that I didn't understand, but I knew it wasn't comfort, and I knew she wasn't happy. By the time we'd been through training with her, we added an Australian Shepherd to our home. I learned about positive training because I wanted to do agility. Everybody I knew who had an Australian Shepherd did agility, so I thought I need to do that too. So no one around here taught agility here in North Carolina where I lived. So I bought agility books and I learned about positive reinforcement, started using it, and thought, oh my gosh, it can be so easy. I have immediate buy-in for my dog. I can reinforce what I want. I get more of it. And we're having fun together, and I don't have to hurt my dog to train my dog. It was a big epiphany for me. His death, tragic death at 2.5, was what caused me to go into a depression. And when I finally came out of that depression, said, I want to help people learn that there's a different way to train their dogs. Didn't mean I wanted to be a dog trainer. I just wanted to gather a bit more education so I could help my friends and maybe help the shelter. So be careful if you're moving into that path, what might happen. I can't imagine how my life would have been had that significant emotional event not happened. So I searched for knowledge, became, well-educated, certified. So many mentors throughout my career and industry leaders have influenced me. I'll talk about some. Well, I talk about some in my book, but certainly I'll talk about some today. I've honed my own skills with my dogs. And it was through Willow, a dog who passed away 6 years ago. Her recall really caused me to say, I really want to put this protocol together. So I've learned from many, many people, including every single client and every single dog. These are the concepts that I'm going to go through one by one. They're all vital, I think, in any training situation, but certainly when you're training recall as well. Trust. With trust, the seemingly impossible becomes possible. And my husband, Brad, who's also a professional dog trainer, says, with trust and understanding, the seemingly impossible becomes possible. So understanding is also involved. I want my dog to trust me that I'm going to always be safe, that I'm going to keep their well-being in mind. And if I'm working with a client, of course, I want that client to trust me. So trust is a very important part of any relationship. Safety and joy for all learners. Safety, of course, that's the big umbrella over everything. We want to keep our animals safe when we're training them. We want to keep our animals safe in our daily life with them. And I'm a firm believer that if you're not having fun during learning, then it's hard to learn. So this picture, I think, kind of represents joy. My gosh, isn't that great? Leaning back, looking up, the sun is shining down, dog's looking at him. So both ends of the leash, yes, fun for both ends of the leash. Just like you have a recipe to create a cake, that recipe for the cake has to have certain ingredients added at a certain time in order to reach ultimate success. That's true for this training protocol as well. There's a systematic way of moving through it so that each exercise builds on the prior exercise. And the criteria on how hard or easy it is builds slowly. So you go through that criteria, gaining success at each spot before you move on to the next. Yes, it takes responsibility. Yes, it takes motivation for you and your dog, and it takes persistency. I will tell you, it's amazing how much training and how much success you can have with just training 5 to 7 minutes a day. Systematic and progressive, I talked about that. Each exercise builds on the other so that they all fit together like these cogs on a wheel. They support one another. The dog has to learn to acquire the skill. They're learning how to do the skill. Then they become fluent at it. So the behavior becomes somewhat reliable before we get into the generalization. Now, if that we had taken that, we can take that reliable behavior and move it to different places and practice it so the dog is able to generalize well. The dog can do it at home. The dog can recall on the front porch, from the backyard, at a known location, and at a new location. But you have to fit it together in the right way and not skip a step in order to reach that success with the recipe. I want it to be so practiced with you and your dog that it becomes automatic. We get to the maintenance phase first before we get to automatic. Maintenance phase means you have to keep practicing. Anything we learn to do, think about some of you who may have learned to knit or may have learned maybe you're a marathon runner. If you stop running for a year, it's going to be hard. You can't go right back out and run a marathon. With a little training and repetition, you can get there. Before it then comes automatic. So it happens anywhere and everywhere, just like when you're driving a car. If you're driving a car and you see brake lights ahead of you, you don't have to logically think, oh, the lights on the car tell me that the car is stopping. I have to take my foot off the accelerator, move it to the left, press on the brake in order to bring the car to a stop without running into the back of the car in front. That's how automatic I want your dog to be, so that when you call, they're not even thinking about what they do. They turn on a dime and return back to you. There's a time when Brad called Cody. Cody was out sniffing something in the pasture, and Brad called him, and his nose, I'm telling you, his nose was still on that scent as his shoulders started to move. So Brad had practiced that behavior with him so frequently that Cody was moving away from that scent automatically, because that behavior had been reinforced time and time and time again. Boy, I said the right word at the right time, didn't I? Generous and consistent reinforcement. When you're training anything, but especially recall, I want your dog to think that it's the finest party in all the land. I want you to have food that your dog considers high value and your dog gets to choose. Later on, we're going to be talking about how to find out what your dog's favorite food is and how to build a reinforcement hierarchy. But I want you and your dog to feel like you're having a party when you're playing these games and you're reinforcing your dog for work well done. And we have Steve White, one of my heroes in dog training, to thank for affirming or adjusting for success. I don't want you to have any bad days. When you're working with your dog, when I'm working with my dog, I'm the trainer, and I put together a plan. It may be loose, it may be written, it may be in my head, but I have a plan of what I'm going to do in that moment. And if things go well, if things go the way I'm planning, I have affirmed that I'm doing things well. If things don't go the way I planned, there's no blame for anybody, no blame for me, no blame for the dog. My role is to look in the mirror, say, I'm the trainer, and how do I adjust this? How do I tweak something to help my dog succeed? So no bad days. Just remember that, no bad days. An important concept of any training, but particularly recall, is management. And so many of you may understand this already, but management is manipulating the environment so that the dog doesn't practice the unwanted behavior. And I think counter surfing is a pretty good example. If we don't want our dog to counter surf in the kitchen, we need to keep food off the counter so we can reinforce the dog for either being outside the kitchen or their 4 feet on the ground. So you create a management strategy for recall. Pretty easy, probably easier than management for counter surfing. It's going to be a 6-foot leash and a long line. Both are vital training tools all the time, but particularly with recall. So whatever type of 6-foot leash you like, I want it to be a fixed length leash, not retractable. I have both leather and biothane 6-foot leashes and long lines. And I must say, I love my leather long line. I just got one for nose work and I'm pretty enamored with it. It's soft as butter. So know that the long line and the 6-foot leash are not crutches. Don't let anyone ever tell you it's a crutch and you need to just start training recall off leash. Au contraire. Those are going to be really helpful training tools to keep your dog near you so that your dog always has a chance to return to you from a short distance before you give them more freedom. My goal for you is to be a wise manager. So here we have a trainer, handler, all set up and ready to go. Harness on their dog, long line, treat bag, so food is accessible to reinforce. Either his markers, clicker as a marker or a verbal marker works. We're going to talk about what a marker signal is in a minute, but he's all ready to train. So be ready and use your 6-foot leash or your long line until you're ready for off-leash recall. The ABCs of training: antecedents, behavior, and consequence. I go into this in detail in my book. Just covered the Cliff Note version here. But an antecedent is a contributing factor to your dog's behavior. All the things that happen before the behavior occurs. The behavior is a response the dog has that's a result of that antecedent. If you take the counter surfing, for example, the food on the counter was an antecedent to the behavior, dog jumping up and getting the food. The consequence is what happens after the dog's behavior that makes that behavior more or less likely to happen again. So Steve White says, and I love this quote, if you've got murky behavior, it's because of unclear antecedents or consequences or both. If you can clean up the antecedents and you can clean up the consequences, the behavior takes care of itself. So I want you to become a master of manipulating your antecedents so that your dog is set up for success. And the image on the right, the illustration by Denise Moore of Mighty Dog Graphics in Ireland, that's our guy, Cody, who just recently passed away. So I love seeing that picture of him. There's a chapter in my book that goes into more detail on this, but I will tell you, for those of you who shy away from learning theory, I've been told that I've put just enough information in it to help you understand without making your eyes glaze over. So Cliff Note version here: operant conditioning, is this good for me or is this bad for me? Or classical conditioning, is this safe for me or is this dangerous for me? So operant conditioning, of which positive reinforcement is one of those quadrants or principles. Operant conditioning is this good for me or is this bad for me? Consequences drive behavior. So if you look up here at the top left, positive reinforcement, if your dog comes to you, you add something, piece of food, in reinforcement, so the behavior will go up, happen again. Positive reinforcement, something is added to help the behavior increase. Positive punishment, something is added to make the behavior decrease. Negative reinforcement, something is taken away to increase behavior. Unfortunately, what's taken away is something that the dog feels is aversive. The negative punishment, something is taken away to decrease a behavior, something the dog likes, the good thing. So here's my thought about the quadrants and what your dog feels when you're using these quadrants. And hopefully you're only using this top left one and maybe a little bit of negative punishment, taking the good thing away. Delight. I want my dog to feel delight when I'm training him. I don't want him to feel distress. I don't want him to feel relief. I don't want him to feel relieved because something that's uncomfortable was removed. Might be a little bit puzzled if I shut the door, if he's jumping on the door when I'm trying to let him out. But as soon as he has 4 feet on the ground, I would zip back up here to this positive reinforcement quadrant and give him a yummy treat or access to the out of doors, which is reinforcing to our dogs. Choose positive reinforcement. Classical conditioning. Is this safe for me or is this dangerous for me? So I have a story in my book that talks about tarantulas. Just like I was in this situation with a tarantula, your dog is making association every moment of the day in response to a stimulus, whatever that might be, in a response to a certain situation, in a response to you. So this is my emotional response to a spider. As a young kid, I was exposed to tarantulas over and over again. I wasn't necessarily scared of them, but my mother was. And she would go to there was no length she wouldn't go to kill one. So I became very afraid of them based on her behavior. I watched her, I got scared from what she did. Oh my God, if she feels that way, I should be really afraid. So I can see a little teeny spider in my house, maybe not little teeny. I can see a spider about as big as a quarter in my house, and I have an emotional response to that. I will squeal like a girl and run away and get Brad to come get the spider. Can't control my emotions. So I want you to think about the way emotional responses develop and try to make sure that your dog is always exposed to things in a neutral environment that you can help them gain comfort in. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. I want you to develop a reinforcement hierarchy, which means you're going to figure out what foods really jazz your dog. A reinforcer is a stimulus that increases the chance of a desired response. So this was Kaylee, my girl who passed away last year. I want Kaylee I want to know Kaylee's full range of reinforcers and how she values those, I guess I should say. I want to understand the value and timing of those. I have to time my reinforcements well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And so many foods are available to you as your dog's trainer, other than the prepackaged treats or foods we buy as treats. So on the right, you see Kaylee's low value reinforcers, this was a product called Natural Balance, some kibble, and saltless, sugarless, dried banana chips. She enjoyed those. Then her medium value reinforcers were chicken or turkey, plain tug or cheese. And then high value reinforcers were salmon treats, a ball, and a squirrel. Now, reinforcement should be immediate. And certainly I'm going to build a hierarchy. A distraction can be a reinforcer. So you notice the squirrel was a distraction for Kaylee. If I didn't have a leash, 6-foot leash, or a long line on her, and she chased a squirrel, that chasing the squirrel would have been reinforcing. No, I'm not going to use it as a reinforcer, but it can be reinforcing to your dog. So distractions can be used as a reinforcer, but not all distractions can be used as a reinforcer. So here's a distraction as a reinforcer. Okay, so I'm going to start working on... Sounds probably a little bit low because I'm not mic'd. Past an amazing distraction. This red ball is pretty much her highest value item. So in my hopes that she'll come past it, I'm going to reduce the distance greatly. She's not going to have to go past it very far at all to get chicken jerky from my pocket. that is also highly reinforcing for her. So let's see what happens. Come on, Kaylee, this way. Sit. Good. Wait, please. The hardest part is making the ball stay. Come, come, come. Yes. Good girl. Then I'm going to send her back. Okay. Go get it. Yay. Good girl. So now I'm going to increase the distance just a tad bit. So now I add more distance after she was successful with a shorter distance or a lesser distance. If you only knew how much she loved that Jolly Ball. It was one of her favorites. Yes. Good girl. Passes it, I feed her, then I release her to go play with the ball. Ready again? So I don't always want to make it harder and harder and harder. I want to ping pong the difficulty. So I've had 2 increasing distances relative to her recall. So I'm going to make this one easy. You continue to make it harder and harder and harder, your dog can give up. Like, this is too hard. So ping pong any difficulty as you begin training. Good girl. All right, push it. Yay! Good girl. Now I'm going to be bold. I'm going to increase distance quite a bit. And as I'm doing this with her, I'm really wondering, this is a long distance for her with the ball. Would she go straight to the ball and push it, or would she actually pass the ball and come to me? And if you notice, I actually place that ball a little bit left of center to set me and set her up for success. So I send her off to play with the ball. So I'm working on the same thing with Keaton right now with the Jolly Ball, my current boy. Here's the training equipment I suggest you have on hand to be ready to use when you're training. A front or back clip harness. So I don't want to ever hook my leash to a collar, because even inadvertent pulling on a collar can damage your dog's esophagus or trachea. A marker signal, that can be a clicker or a verbal marker. A wearable treat bag, you want your food easily accessible. A 6 foot fixed length leash, say that 10 times. A 15 to 20 foot long line. Again, it's fixed length, and low, medium, high value reinforcers. Water for you, water for your dog. Closed-toed shoes. Why would I want you to wear closed-toed shoes? You're going to be running and trotting, so I want you to have good footwear so you're safe. And so your dog is safe, so you don't trip and land on your dog. And most importantly, a willingness to learn. But you're here with me, so thank you for your willingness to learn. Here is my definition of a rocket recall. That glorious moment that anytime and anywhere you say come, and your dog immediately and enthusiastically turns on a dime and bounds rapidly to you. And while I say come, I use that as the generic recall word that most people use, but you'll see that I suggest you use a different word. We'll talk about that in a moment. Here's an example of the finished behavior with my girl, Kaylee.
Okay, hold your ears.
So she's down at the house, kind of center.
Come. There she is, bottom right of the screen. What a good girl. Look at you. Good job, baby girl. Nice job. All right, shall we go find Brad? Let's go.
And off we go. And here's the finished behavior with Keaton. Just shot last week or the week before.
Keaton just ran way down to the house, which is about mid-screen. Hold your ears, I'm going to call him.
I'm going to stop this for a second. This is this happens during our daily walks. So we have a lot of property. All this is fenced acreage. And I usually head out for a walk with the dogs before Brad, or maybe Brad's already gone for a walk with them and he's back at the house. So I'm, coming around, and I'm at the top of a knoll, and I think Kaylee, or this time Keaton, had seen Brad, and so Keaton had run down to the house, which is about center screen. It's so foggy you can hardly see. So I thought, okay, good time to, maintenance, continue practicing so Keaton's recall stays strong. Good time to call him.
Keaton! Come, come, come.
So he'll be coming around right here. So here he comes, barely in the fog. You can see him right there.
See him in the fog.
Lickety
Right
split.
screen by the pecan tree. Good boy. You're amazing, my boy. You're amazing. Good job, kiddo. That was nice. You're the best dog in the whole wide world. Okay, let's go.
And off we go. So this is a new location. This was, Keaton was a puppy. He was months old here. And if any of you are near Atlanta, on Lake Lanier, there's a business called the Pooch Pontoon. So you can make a reservation, couple friends, couple dogs, go tool around on the lake, be entertained with being on the boat. And we stop on an uninhabited island. So very, very small. I felt comfortable letting Keaton off leash. There was nowhere he could go, but it was the first time he had been off leash in an unknown location. And the Pooch Pontoon got this video. So it's a really short video, but it was the first time he called, or he came to me. He ran way down. I called him. He comes running back quickly.
That was awesome.
And so we have a party. And he got lots of food for that too. I had food in my pocket. So here's calling Kaylee away from playing with another dog. So there's some name response here. So I'll say her name. She looks at me, and then I give her recall cue. Come.
Kaylee, come. Yes. Good girl.
And for her, dog play was very distracting.
Come on.
Obviously, another dog that she loves a lot.
Hey, Kaylee. Oh, good girl. Yes, good. Just feed him. Don't feed her. At least try. Actually, don't feed either one of them if they're together.
Maxwell doesn't want anything right now.
Maxwell's was a young Portuguese water dog.
Little fries.
Kaylee, this way. Come. Good girl.
So with practice, you too, training and practice, you too can call your dog away from play. As I mentioned, Deborah will have the webinar link that I did on focus and attention exercises some months ago. I've included these here because I cannot not include them. They're a vital part of moving through, or I should say moving to the recall protocol. And if you ever want to be able to call your dog away from prey, it's the foundation. So just like the foundation in this picture, this concrete foundation, before the rest of the building is built on top of it, you need focus and attention from your dog. And the check-in game and the name game are going to help you gain that focus and attention. And again, I'm going to breeze through these pretty quickly because I want to spend more time on the recall exercises. The check-in game, the goal is to offer check-ins. I want your dog to automatically look at you without being asked whether they're on or off leash. And we capture that behavior. The handler silently observes, waits for the dog to look at them. They mark, reinforce that offered attention, praise as well, and then remove eye contact to give the dog permission to look away, and then repeat the exercise. So phase one of the check-in game, there are 3 phases, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And the same is true for all the other games. And phase 1 is the least challenging criteria. Phase 2 is a little bit more challenging. Phase 3 builds off of that. So phase 1 is indoors off leash, then outside with your dog on a 6-foot leash. Again, the goal is your dog offers attention to you without asking in your house or your yard. And you're going to practice first in a no distraction environment like your house. So you see Brad and Cody. He's in the house working on this first before I then move to the second phase with Kaylee on a 6-foot leash.
So he decides to lay down. That's okay. Yes, he looks me in the eyes. I love that. I mark it and reinforce it. Good job, buddy. Yes, his little eyes came up to look at me versus my treat hand. I love that. Yes, good boy. Nice. I'm going to toss a piece of food to reset him, go after that to give him the opportunity to give his attention back to me. Yes, good. You notice he didn't look me in the eyes that time? I'm not waiting for that higher level of criteria. I'll mark it, of course, if he gives it to me, but the first thing I'm working on is just having him always orient back toward me. Are you a good boy? Are you a good boy? You are. Good. Thank you. Okay. Good. Let's do one more. Keaton, you ready? Good boy. Okay, go get it. This time I was waiting just to see if he would look me in the face. He did not. That's okay. He came over here and laid down.
So I'm adjusting here, right? I said, adjusting or affirming. I'm adjusting in order to help him be successful with the next repetition of the exercise.
Yes. He lays down and looks at me in the face. Actually in the eyes. Perfect. That was awesome, Daddy. You're a good job. Take a break. You did a good job. Yes, you are. You're a good boy. Yes.
So after I've trained the check-in game on the inside, then I move outside on a 6-foot leash.
Nice job.
Notice I'm just merely observing him, letting him sniff, do what he wants to do. There's been a rabbit earlier in the morning in that location, so I think he's sniffing rabbit or rabbit poop. I don't want him to go into the bushes, so I just put a treat magnet, a piece of food in front of his nose and lure him out of the flocks.
Yes.
Keeping my eyes on him so that
Yes.
I can be ready to reinforce him when he looks my way.
Yes. Very nice. You go this way? Yes. Excellent.
So Brad's filming, so pretty high distraction having Brad there. So now I go to another location around my property on a 6-foot leash. Different part of our property. Again, we're in a fenced area. And I'm doing the same thing. We're taking a walk. I'm watching him. Oh, he looks up. I mark and reinforce.
Yes. Good boy.
You will be amazed at if you start marking and reinforcing your dog's offered check-ins with you, and you continue to do that, you'll be amazed at how your relationship grows and your dog's focus on you grows.
Good job, buddy.
So I go to a different part of our property, taking a stroll, again, letting him do what he wants to do, observing him, being patient, not saying anything to him, waiting for him to give me that offered look back. Keeping the leash loose. So it took a little while. No worries. So problem solving with phase 1. You saw me do this with Keaton. If the dog's too focused on you, you may need to put the piece of food behind the dog's back or on the ground just to take the dog's eyes away from you. If your dog is too distracted, take any approximation of the dog looking your way, or you might need to move to a lower distraction area. Phase 2, we move to the same exercise, but this time on a long line. So the dog has had success on a 6-foot leash, your dog, same goal, this time in your yard or low distraction locations away from your home. You want to practice first in your yard before you go to those other low distraction environments.
Yes. Nice job, kid.
So you notice I don't have the entire 15 feet of my line played out. I wanted to keep it a little closer to me until I was successful with a few check-ins. Then I begin to lengthen that long line. And there's a learning curve. If you haven't had a long line, there's a learning curve to it. I have a couple of pages in my book on how to effectively use one. Takes a little bit of practice. Otherwise, you're going to trip yourself or your dog.
Well done. Yes.
So now I let out a little bit more line. He chooses to stay with me. Goes toward Brad again. Then he has to take a bio break, if I remember this video correctly.
Yes. Good
Yeah,
boy.
I thought so.
Pee.
Tea time.
Good boy. That was nice. That was lovely.
So phase 2 problem solving, not unlike the first phase. If your dog is too distracted, shorten the length of the leash, to the long line. Move to a lower distraction area. Phase 3 is when we go off leash, when you've had full success with those prior 2 phases. Then you're going to practice in your yard before other safely fenced, varied locations around your community. Again, always first in your yard before you move to other places. Here I'm in a very back of our pasture with Keaton off leash.
Nice. Thank you, Betty.
It's so fun to see him as a little puppy.
Yes. Did I drop one over there? Here, you earned that one. Good job. Yes.
I let him sniff, but I keep my eyes on him. He's pretty focused on me, so you'll see what I do in a moment relative to taking his attention away from me. So I marked him, but I threw the reinforcer behind him so I could walk away and give him a chance to look back at me from a further distance. So problem solving for phase 3, anytime, and this goes for any training of anything. If your dog isn't successful, go back to the last place where your dog was successful, or lower distractions, or raise the value of your reinforcer. If you're using kibble, try cheese. If you're training outside, move inside. If moving doesn't help, then go back to whatever phase your dog was fully successful, and start there again. So the name game. The goal is your dog looks immediately towards you when their name is spoken. The dog's cue, or excuse me, your dog's name is a cue to look at you. So you're going to cue the name, mark any approximation of eye contact, recognition. You're going to reinforce and praise, then remove eye contact and repeat. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, pardon me for repeating, but I've had a cold and I still have a cough and a sore throat. So my voice gets a little scratchy and tickly. So bear with me. Same goal. Where inside your house or on a 6-foot leash, excuse me, house or yard on a 6-foot leash. Practice first in a no distraction environment. with your dog, such as a quiet room of your home with your dog off leash. If you haven't taught your dog his name, I'm not going to show this video. It's in the other presentation, but it is on our YouTube channel, so you can find it there too, on how to teach your dog his name or her name.
Keaton. Yes, good. Good boy. Keaton. Yes. Keaton. Yes, good boy. Nice job. That was lovely. Good job. Good job.
I tried a little bit to get him excited. Phase 1 problem solving is very similar to what you've seen before. You may have to invite a friend as a distraction by this time, so that can help. And if the dog doesn't immediately look, don't repeat their name. Just make a kissing noise or another sound. Boop, boop, boop. Brad keeps a naked squeaker, a squeaky toy, not a toy, but a squeaker in his pocket that he could use. So phase 2, the goal remains the same. The dog immediately turns their head and looks at you when they say their name. This phase is on a long line and in your yard or low distraction areas away from your home. And of course, by now, I think you're understanding. I want you to practice at home in your yard first before you go anywhere else. The park on a Sunday morning is better than a park on your town park on a Saturday morning. So use your brain wisely in trying to determine what's going to be the least distracting new public area. This is Melanie and Haas demonstrating here. We were working together.
And I like what your decision there to click the moment he started turning, especially in an environment that's this distracting for him. We don't want to wait for that eye contact. We can start clicking any approximation of that.
Okay. Good boy.
Is he not handsome? So notice the moment he started turning, that was a check-in. She marked that even before she said his name. So if you've moved into the name game, you can still reinforce offered check-ins. So that is Melanie and Haas. Phase 3, off leash. Same goal, immediately turns the head towards you in your yard or low distraction areas with your dog off leash. And your preparation is make sure you've had success with those first 2 phases. So here's Puppy Keaton.
You look so little under that tree, buddy. See, that's because I am. Good boy.
Putting all these videos together, I realized how much I call him Buddy.
Yes, good.
So he checked in with me there. I reinforced that, let him go off.
Keaton. Yes. So he was going after deer poop. Was able to interrupt him. Let's go, buddy.
So not only does this game build
you, huh?
your relationship with your dog, you can call him away from deer poop.
Yes.
Okay, take a break. Not really take a break, but changing from foundation, focus and attention exercises to the rocket recall exercises. Choosing a cue. What's your cue going to be? You've heard me call Kaylee and Keaton with the same cue, come. That came from early on when I used to, with all my puppies, I'll do puppy, 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 and run away from them as a chase me game. And then I just slowly went to come. I don't like just to say come, because that can be said in a really harsh tone. So I've always asked my clients, please pick something fun. Pick something that's fun for you. Pick a new cue if your dog hasn't been responding to your current cue 75% of the time. It's easier to condition a new cue than it is change the feeling about the old cue. So if your dog has a lot of experience running off when you say your old cue, change it to a new cue. It'll help you be more lighthearted, and I just really think it helps make training more fun. These words that you see on the image, those are actually cues that my clients have picked over the years. Pick one of those. I just love the woman who said, happy hour. It is a happy hour if you're working with your dog. So I'm turning on the cue here. The goal is to create a happy association with the sound of the cue. I want you to start inside with your dog on leash, and then you'll move outside with your dog, and then inside practice for a week, and out of doors around the house for a week.
Good job. Good, good, good.
So I'm really saying the cue, which is just a sound to Keaton, and I'm pairing that sound with something of value to him, food. He's in that cute adolescent stage where he's got big head, funny ears, long legs.
Good, good, good. Nice. It's as simple as that, isn't it? Huh? It's as simple as that. Come on, let's go.
And rocket recall, not just for dogs.
Come.
This is Tiffany Lovell and her cat, Gabby.
Come. Come.
And yes, she did teach her cat a rocket recall.
Come. Come. Good girl.
The Chase Me game. The goal of this game is your dog rapidly following you when you say your recall cue. We're harnessing the dog's genetic desire to chase. So dogs love chasing things. Why not have them chase you? I love to play this game with Keaton. I still do. There's a specific handler stance in the beginning. You'll see that stance in a moment. And I want you to be happy and upbeat. This is a lighthearted, fun game. You're going to say your recall cue. Because you've already paired it with food, it's already has some value with the dog. Your dog is on leash. You're going to trot 3 or 4 feet away. As your dog moves, you'll mark that behavior and then reinforce it for 15 to 30 seconds. Remember that party I wanted you to have with your dog? I want you to lengthen the time of that party. So phase 1, I want your dog to eagerly follow you, and you're only trotting 3 feet away. So you see Anthony here. He has his body turned away, his feet pointed away from Mia, and he's ready to say his cue. You're going to practice in the house or your yard on a 6-foot leash.
Yes. Good job. Well done.
And yes, I still periodically practice this phase of the exercise with Keaton. Now he's nearly 60 pounds.
Come. Yes. Good boy.
I don't have to trot very far before I reinforce him. And notice I lengthen the period of reinforcement. It's 2 or 3 pieces of food.
Come. Yes. Well done. You're the best. Yes. Good job. Well done. Very nice. Get that when I dropped one.
3 or 4 or 5 times in a session is plenty. Then you can have another session later in the day if you want. So I'm on the 6-foot leash in one area of our pasture. I'm going to move ahead a little bit. I thought I had this video had a different location, but it doesn't. So what I spend about 2 minutes doing this with him in this particular session. Plenty of time. Less is more oftentimes for your dog. Don't overtrain. Phase 2, we're moving to a long line. So you can see Anthony's further away from Mia when he starts saying the cue. You're 10 to 15 feet away. Still want your dog to rapidly follow you. And you'll be practicing in your yard or areas already known to your dog. So graduate slowly from your yard or other areas already known to your dog. That could be your neighbor's backyard. It could be a different part of your neighborhood where you walk every day. You don't want it to be a brand new area. Handler position is the same. Turning away from your dog and being ready to run. And look at Mia. Look at her. She was amped up and ready to go the minute he started running. Here's Tiffany and Bosco on a very hot day in July with the long line.
Again, with the long line, we're giving Bosco a little more freedom to move about, but he seems to be following just nicely.
This is actually an excerpt from our Tozzer Dog Rocket Recall video.
Excellent.
We filmed some years ago. Bosco was one of our dogs, demo dogs. He has now crossed over.
The other way.
He's on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge. Shazam! Precious boy.
Bosco's slowed down a little bit, but I don't think it's due to enthusiasm. I think it's due to the heat that we have outside this afternoon. Good job, Bosco.
Phase 2, what happens in phase 2 for problem solving? If your dog is just moseying along, think about raising the value of your reinforcer, or it could be hot outside. So think about that. What could be affecting your dog's response? You might need to scan the environment, create more distance from any distractions that you can't remove. You might even need to move to another location with fewer distractions. Your goal is to, make your dog success. At no time on any of these exercises do I want you to test your dog's limits. The goal is choosing a criteria that you absolutely believe your dog can succeed with. And if they can succeed, then you're ready to go to the next step. The speed is still rapidly. This time you're trotting 5 to 10 feet away, a little bit less distance because the dog is now off leash. Practicing again in your yard or low distraction, safely fenced areas. And I said this already, lower distance because the dog is now off leash. Sorry. Wanted to stop that. Anytime you increase criteria in one area, you may need to lower it in the other area. So if it's going to be a little bit harder for your dog, let's see how we can make it easier in some other aspect. So in this case, we're making it easier so the dog doesn't have to travel quite as far off leash. Oh, video. There we go. Come.
Yes, good job. Find it. Come.
This is where nice shoes for you might be handy in keeping you on your feet instead of tripping.
Good job. Good job.
Notice how many pieces, little teeny pieces of food I'm feeding him, lengthening that period of reinforcement.
That was awesome.
Continuing to praise him, telling him he's the best dog in the whole wide world. Because he is. Aren't all our dogs?
Good job. You want to find that one? Find that. Come. Yes.
And again, you notice I'm not trotting very far away, just 5 to 10 feet.
You're the best boy. Find Keaton. Find it. Find it. Come, come, come. Yes.
I got a little braver. I went 15 to 20 feet that time. He was doing so well. So you get the idea. Problem solving. By now you're probably getting pretty good to say, okay, I know the things that I might need to adjust. Have you moved too quickly? Did you gain prior success on those other exercises? Are you using the right value of reinforcer? I can use kibble inside to train Keaton, but boy, when I go outside, I need something higher value. Maybe there are too many distractions. So look at all those areas and do some problem solving on your own. So what happens if you call and your dog doesn't come? Save the recall. So it's finding a way to encourage the dog to come to you. Bring out your inner cartoon character. Be animated, clap your hands, pat your legs, get a squeaky toy, turn and run away from your dog. And I love this one, explore the ground with your fingers. If you ever, just when you're out in your yard with your dog sometime when they're not looking, or even if they are looking, don't say a word to them. Just bend down and start exploring the ground with your fingers. I bet they'll come right to you. They think, oh my gosh, what does she have? I need to go see what she's doing. Or if you can get back up off the ground, fall flat on the ground. Seriously, it works. I've actually turned falling flat on the ground as into a recall cue for Keaton. I started just capturing it really when he came. Anyway, I digress. So here's me saving the recall with Keaton.
Is up in the tall grass to the right of the tree. He walked to me a few feet. Puppy, puppy, puppy! He doesn't come, so I'm going to run away.
I hadn't added my other tree.
Yes, good boy!
So my movement causes him to come toward me. Good job. So he's early in recall training, but that's what I call saving the recall. I called, he didn't come immediately, so I merely trotted away. Good job, buddy.
So here are those examples of things that you can do to save the recall. Be careful, you might get a nose punch. And running away. So if you think about it, the chase me game, right? We've turned our back and run away. In some respects, you're really sort of training this. And he loves to chase me, of course. Your dog probably loves to chase you as well. If you haven't tried it, they will. This is a recall class session at our former training center. And one of the things I loved about all of the training we did there is we always heard laughter. And let me tell you, you're going to see some laughter in this video because Pat is calling serious. And at one of the final steps, we've made it a little bit too hard for him. And she has to try to save the recall.
Serious? Come in! He's ready. Yay.
This is a dog who had no relationship with his handler because he'd been trained aversively. He chose to be anywhere but with Pat, except for when she was training. He complied, but he never wanted to be near her. Enter a few positive reinforcement classes in this recall class, and their relationship blossomed. So now Brad's holding a plate of chicken, I think, or maybe it's an empty plate. but he has to pass a person and something in that person's hand. Now Brad's lower to the ground, passes a little bit of a glance at Brad. Now Brad's lowered. So she saved the recall by being animated. Now he's passing the dog and 2 people. Had to take a glance toward Brad. I think Brad has a bowl of chicken. Yeah, he's got the chicken. So a little too hard for Sirius. So we need to do some major adjusting here, don't we? We didn't get success. Pat gets closer, tries again. She finally leads him back to where she was. Now we make it easier for him. So we lessen the criteria so he could be successful. So where else do you have fun? Besides a recall class where if you're laughing and learning together, you're going to be having fun. Here's an example of when saving the recall didn't really work. So Brad had whistled for Keaton. I'm obviously near Keaton.
Go ahead, go.
I have the stronger relationship with him at this point in time. And Keaton's not sure what to do. Watch Brad, who's down here by the fence, mid-screen.
Run away from him. Make some movement. Let's see if he'll follow.
So as any good dog trainer husband would, he's following my instructions.
I had the stronger reinforcement history for recall. At a closer distance, Keaton always comes to Brad, but this is a lot to ask.
So we get a little bit of interest, but nah, he ends up stopping. So, we thought we'd give it a try. Didn't work. No harm, no foul. We know the next time we would lessen the distance if we wanted to try this. Okay. If you've been sitting for a long time, stand up, stretch your arms up, stretch your legs, and we'll move into some additional exercises. And now I've lost my cursor. There it is. It's back. We're going to be talking about additional games that will strengthen your recall. Maintenance training, a very important part of the protocol. How do you get over those training speed bumps? What do you need to think about when you start training around prey and other distractions? And the 12 rules of rocket recall. Round robin games, it's what I call them. I think a lot of people probably call them that as well. Comes from the game of tennis where each contestant meets another contestant in turn. But in the game for dogs, the dog is going to be running to one of 2 or more people. First in a pattern and then randomly. So I start practicing this first with 2 people. And my goal is I want the dog to eagerly move from each person, not just amble toward the other person. Really, really important that you start inside your house or on your yard. You might even need to use a long line, depending on how distracted your dog is outside. And each person needs to have the exact type of food, the exact type of treat. Otherwise, if it were me and somebody had ice cream and somebody had broccoli, I know which person I would choose all the time. So make sure you have the same type of food. Here's Brad and I practicing at the beach. Anytime I go to a new location with my dogs, I play all of these games before I ever let them off leash. And this isn't a place that would be permissible to have Kaylee off leash. I let her drag a long line instead because it's her very first trip to the beach. Well, I purposely waited until she was already coming to me before I called to make sure I set her up for success in this brand new location. Brad whistled. You couldn't hear him whistle because of the sound of the wind.
Haley, come. Yes. That's my girl. Awesome. Okay, go see Brad. Go.
I never let an opportunity go by if I'm out with my dogs. Like, okay, how can we turn this into training fun? So Brad's down at the house. He calls her, reinforces her. She starts coming back to me right away.
What a good girl.
I didn't even have to call her. I reinforce her for that.
Ready? Go.
So think about all the opportunities you could have to practice like this around your yard or your home area.
Kaylee. Good girl.
And we have to end with a jump. So once the game, a round robin game has been successful with 2 people, then you can move to 3 or more people. And the game is the same. Each person has to have the same value of food. The dog is I want the dog to be eagerly moving toward each person. In your house or in your yard, you may need to also put your dog on a long line, or it could be a 6-foot leash. And again, please have the exact same food. What problems might you encounter? Could be the dog is hesitant to run to a specific person for whatever reason. Maybe that person looks different, has an odd shirt or hat on. You don't want your dog to be afraid. So certainly we want to rule out any fear or anxiety issues. But that person just might need to be animated in some way. They might need to turn the opposite direction, trot away, or move backward. Consider the distractions in the environment and then the value of reinforcers. You all may need to go up in value. One additional person who's novel and added to the group can be a big distraction. Or you might need to move to a location. Premack the recall. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Premack principle, but I'm going to introduce it to you if you're not. It really was the distraction Jolly Ball video I used. I was actually using the Premack principle then. Using the Premack principle can strengthen your recall, really all of your dog's training. The principle is a lower probability behavior, which is coming or running past a Jolly Ball, can be reinforced by a higher probability behavior, Kaylee playing with the ball. It's also known as Grandma's Law. Eat your vegetables and then you get dessert. Here's an example of that with Willow. You're not going to start out with this much distance, and you may need to start with something really low value, a toy in the middle of between you and your dog, placed
Willow, come.
center.
Yes, good girl. Nice. Red ball.
So I feed her a treat and send her right back to play with the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. Get it. Come on, get it. Yeah. You ready? You ready? Oh, good. Get it. All right. Good. Leave it. Missy. Let's go. This way. Come on. Sit.
That was huge in and of itself,
Yes,
as much as
good.
she loved that Jolly Ball, for her to fall away from it.
Willow, come. Yes. Nice. Red ball.
good girl. Awesome. Push it. Yeah, good girl. One more time. Push it, you can do it. Yeah. You're ready. Get it.
And there we go.
Wait.
Pre-MAC principle in action. I have 11 pre-MAC games in my book and describe each one. This is the photo of how we did, pre-MAC game number 7. So the dog recalls to the handler and passing a person in the middle who's holding a bowl with food in it. And so the bowl is at waist level. The dog is reinforced. In this picture, Keely's running after I call her, the top right photo. In the bottom left photo, she's reinforced with a high-value piece of food. Then she's led to the helper for further reinforcement with a chicken from the bowl. This is pre-MAC game number 10, where we've added another dog. So your dog has to be dog friendly, of course. Both dogs do. But she passes the handler, the person with the other dog comes to me, and then she is sent back to greet the other dog. When you have another dog helping you, be sure that the handler reinforces that dog as well, because the helper dog is definitely doing some work as well, being focused on the handler while the other dog is running past. So pre-MAC games. Hide and seek. This is what I play. Oh my gosh, I play this frequently with Keaton, probably 4 times a week when we're out in the pasture. Why do I do that? It's fun. It reminds me of when I was a kid and I was playing hide and seek. But what it really does is build your dog's desire to find you. Definitely helps strengthen recall. It helps strengthen your relations with your dog, your relationship with your dog in general. Anytime people play games together and do something they enjoy together, that bond is going to develop. I start inside, hiding inside first before I start outside. Once I'm hidden, I think when Keaton was a puppy, I needed to make a little noise for him to kind of hone in onto where I was. I don't now. Celebrate with glee, have a party when you're found. Sometimes I'll reinforce with food. Sometimes I won't. Finding you and having just being animated with your dog can oftentimes be enough. And then you can gradually increase the difficulty inside as well as outside.
So he's eating a treat. Perhaps I dropped a treat. Oh, I was going to hide from him.
So he's looking away as a puppy. I'm going to zip behind our old barn.
Okay, I'm going to hide here behind our old barn
and move out of sight. And I'm hoping that he'll miss me and want to come looking for me. I expected him before now.
I may need to make a noise to alert him that I've moved. We'll see. I'll be patient. Just wait just a little bit.
But you'll see I decide to peek. What's he doing? Why isn't he trying to find me yet? He probably just missed me. So I've moved back behind the barn.
Yay! You found me, good boy. That was awesome, my boy. Good job.
You don't ever want your dog to be worried that they can't find you. So make sure, like I did, I wanted to see what he was doing, that he wasn't worried.
He ran off up the path to the other side of the pasture. So I decided I would hide behind a tree, or at least stay here.
So I'm in a slightly wooded section of our property, and Keaton has run, off in the pasture area somewhere. I'm waiting for him to return, thinking that he'll try to find me.
Might be a little bit too much to ask. I hear Cody barking.
You heard me say, I think it might be a little too much to ask. Cody's barking down at the house.
He's missed me. So I'm going to duck behind this tree.
So here he comes. I'm going to peek out by the right side of the tree.
He's looking for me.
looking for me.
I'm going to make a noise.
I thought sure he'd see me then, but he passes by me.
He's looking. That's where I was when he left me.
And right now I'm worried. I'm about to worry that I've made it too hard for him and that he might be worried that he can't find me. So I'm about ready to call him or make a noise. When he happens to say, oh, there she is.
Yay! You found me! Keaton, that was great, buddy. That was awesome. That was fabulous. You found me! Yay, let's go. So Keaton ran off ahead of me.
So this is in a different location.
Over here.
I'm sneaky. If I'm taking a walk with him in the pasture and he runs out of my sight, I'll always duck behind a tree.
You found me, good boy. Good job. Good job. All right, let's go.
So take the time, make the time to play hide and seek with your dog. Another game is a recall and release game. Call your dog to you and then let them return and go do what they were doing. It helps prevent the dog's loss of interest in coming to you. If you're always calling your dog to you and ending the fun, maybe leashing them up and, putting them in the house, who's going to want to come the next time? So make sure you create some opportunities to call them to you and then send them away to go do something else fun. Pretty easy. Your dog comes to you, you reinforce that with a treat and then release them to go play. My 2 cues that I use when they start running off is go sniff or go play.
Puppy Kaylee! Puppy, puppy, puppy!
So this was Kaylee. Oh. The itty bitty baby puppy when we started there.
Good. That was so good, even though you took a face plant. Yeah, good girl. Nice job. Okay, go on.
%100% puppy. Boy, so cute.
Puppy, 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 yes.
So I captured that. She started running to me. I just added the cue and then reinforced her when she came to me.
There's some more. Good girl. Kaylee's down with Brad and Cody.
And right down there, if you can put the cursor.
Here she comes. Yay, that's my girl. Yes.
So I mark it with my yes very loudly.
Nice. Good job. Go play.
So how do you maintain a rocket recall? Your dog's acquired the skill. You've generalized it if you work through all these exercises in different locations. And then your dog has become fluent. So they're pretty good at recall. Now you have to make sure that you continue the maintenance. You create ways to practice daily. Fit in 1 or 2 reps. It doesn't need to be a lot, but it's repetition, repetition that will help your dog learn. And why does this mandolin, me holding a mandolin, relate to maintenance? It's because I used to be a really good I used to be a pretty decent mandolin player. Stopped playing when we, started Cold Nose College, didn't play for a lot of years because we were so busy. And when I finally picked it back up again, I'd lost all my skill. I didn't have that skill. So because I didn't practice, I lost the skill. But the great thing is, if your dog loses some recall skill because you didn't practice, all it takes is a little refresher, and your dog can gain that skill back again, just like I did my mandolin.
So now let's take a look at a video. This is example of maintaining a rocket recall as well as the recall and release. So Willow is way in the woods on the other side of the pasture. Yes. I've called her, she returns to me. I mark the behavior, reinforce her, send her to go play again.
Okay, go play.
Now she's looking at Cody, our other dog. I use my recall cue, and she immediately disengages from Cody and comes to me. I mark the behavior, reinforce it, and send her off to go play again.
Thank you. Very nice. Okay, go play.
And then this time, she's way out of view. She's over that little knoll in the pasture. I call her. That's Cody coming first. See that little speck? She passes by Brad. She passes by Cody, continuing rocketing to me happily, enthusiastically, and I reinforce the heck out of this. What a good girl.
Yes, good. Awesome. Go play. Come on, let's go.
And I gave her a little recall and release there too.
Kaylee! Come, come, come!
Look to the right of that small pear tree in the middle of the pasture there.
Here she comes. She was way up at the back of the pasture. What a good girl. Look at you. You had to come a long way. Awesome, my sweet girl. You're the best. Nice job. You ready to go? Okay, let's go play. Okay.
This clip is a little dark because it's early morning.
My alternate recall cue for Kaylee when she's out in the pasture is 3 hand claps. So let's see what happens.
She is somewhere over the knoll in the center part of that screen.
Here she comes. Yes! What a good
Barely
girl.
see her little white chest. She'll be coming in from the left.
Fantastic,
she comes
young lady.
out of view.
Awesome.
Then she comes, finds me.
What a good girl. Nice. Good. That was awesome. All right, let's go. Excellent.
There are always going to be peaks and valleys in learning. I'm sure if you've learned something new, you've discovered that as well with your own learning. It's true for people, it's true for dogs. So there's always individuality in the learner. If you were learning something new, maybe let's say, what's something I'm going to learn how to do? I'd love to learn to do pottery. If I wanted to learn to do pottery and you wanted to learn to do pottery, and we both went to the same pottery class, received the same instruction, we'd still have individuality in how we learned. You might learn faster than I did or do. And that's going to be true for our dogs too. I don't ever want you to compare yourself and your dog with someone else's learning. There's individuality in all of us. Look in the mirror if something isn't going right and say, okay, I need to leave any judgment behind. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just good information. What happened in this training session is good information of something I need to change, something I need to adjust to help my dog get it right. So it could be, you see the dogs on the bus. Denise O'Moore is so great with these illustrations. Maybe your dog isn't feeling well that day. Perhaps there's a squirrel outside. Maybe you need to change the value of your reinforcer. But here are the things I'm going to talk about one by one. Number of things, from failure to choose a reinforcer that's high enough in value to failure to back up in training when exercise doesn't bring about success. We people can be very stubborn sometimes, like, God, he should do it, but he isn't doing it. So we need to understand why, and video is going to help you. First, failure to choose a reinforcer that's high enough value. I have spent an hour and a half talking about how to build a reinforcement hierarchy. Those details are in my book, and it's really important for you to understand what it is your dog's what it is your dog values, and how distractions are not valued but leveled. There are low, medium, and high distractions for your dog, and low, medium, and high value reinforcers. And the idea is to pair those appropriately. So I'm training Keaton in a low distraction environment. I could use kibble. But if I'm training him in a high distraction environment, I need to bring out cheese or liver. So experiment with your reinforcers. It could be that you don't understand how to fold in duration, distance, and distractions. All of those need to be folded in. I should say each of those need to be folded in one at a time. If you've added distance, and you start to add duration, you're going to need to decrease the distance if you're going to increase the duration. Same thing with distractions. Our goal is not to test your dog's limits, but to always plan your training so that your dog has an attainable and achievable goal in that session. This protocol that is designed, if you follow it, it is designed to help you address those 3 Ds. Extraneous body movement. Our dogs are keen observationists. They will always pick up on our body language. Thousands and thousands of years of watching people to figure out what we're doing. Sometimes we're moving in such a way that they pick up our extraneous body movement as a cue. And when we don't make that movement, they don't perform the behavior. Let me go back. So be clean about your training and make sure you minimize any extraneous body movement. Lack of clarity about what you're training. This happened to me the other day. I'm learning herding skills. I don't know that I'll ever get to working sheep with Keaton, but I'm going to train him with those skills. And so I've been reading Barb Buckmeyer's book, which I love beyond measure. And I know the content. I mean, I understand what she's saying, but there are a lot of different steps to the training protocol, just as I'm introducing steps to you. And so I got in the midst of my training and thought, oh gosh, I can't quite remember this. I need to take a break, go back, check the book, and then get back to training. But if I continued on, I wasn't really clear about what I was supposed to do. And if I'm not clear, then my dog can't understand either. Frustration during training. If you're frustrated, whatever reason, it could be you are frustrated, it could be your dog is frustrated. Try to make things simple enough for your dog to always succeed. Don't overtrain, and they shouldn't be frustrated. But if something's bothering you on any particular day, and you just kind of feel grumbly, skip training. Don't even give it a try that day. Negative frame of mind. It's been a little hard on Brad and I the last couple of weeks. His mom, my mother-in-law, passed away less than a week ago. So not necessarily a negative frame of mind, but we've been pretty sorrowful. We've got a big loss in our life. So I really haven't trained much. I trained one day on some herding skills. So, just skip training on that day. I hope that none of you would purposely train when you know your dog isn't well, but our dogs are masters of hiding pain from us. So if you've been training a couple of days in a row and you're not getting the level of success that you once were, think about what it could be. Rule out all the other things, and maybe your dog needs a vet visit to determine what might be going on. Err on the side of caution with this being that you love wholeheartedly. Big mistake is failure to back up in training when the exercise doesn't bring about success. I've had clients say, but he should know it by now. He should know it here in the park. I've been working on it at home for 6 weeks. Why doesn't he know it in the park? I don't know why he doesn't know it at the park, but he's not doing it. If he can't do it, he either doesn't know it, hasn't learned it yet, or there are just too many distractions around. So back up to where your dog was last successful and move from there. Video is your friend. Raising my hand. No, it's not always fun to watch myself on video, but I learn so much. I've been videoing, except for this week when I didn't feel like getting my video camera out. I filmed almost every single session Keaton and I have done on working on training herding directionals. And my goodness, is it helpful for me, because it's new for me. I'm learning new skills, learning new luring movements, learning new training equipment to, mix that into my training. And the video has been exponentially helpful in helping me figure out, oh, I need to tweak that, or I need to move this. Oh, look what Keaton did there. That was really nice. I didn't even realize I did that. So please, you have a video camera on you today. We all do. It's probably sitting right beside you. Some of you may be even watching this on your phone, but take advantage of that. And if you naturally find fault with something that you do, if you're a little too hard on yourself, try to find, maybe you found one thing that's like, oh, that was awful. Shouldn't have done that. If you think that once, I want you to find 5 things that you did well, because I guarantee you did 5, maybe even 10 things really, really well. First of all, you were training your dog and you were videoing it to look back. So know that video is your friend. Pray. What do we do with pray? We pray. No. Yet pray is the ultimate distraction for your dog, without a doubt. So let's spend a little time talking about how I've worked with Kaylee and now Keaton on working around prey. Dogs are predators. So they are naturally going to be interested in prey. They are genetically programmed to be interested in prey. In the wild, they need to be interested in prey so they can catch it and eat it. Know that your dog may always choose prey over your recall cue. Don't ever believe anyone if they say you've got 100% recall. I might every single time, but I will tell you, someone I know and love very well last week had his dog off leash in a place where the dog had been off leash numerous times. Just so happened that this particular day, there was a dead deer on the other side of the road. I'm sorry to tell you that this beautiful dog is no longer with us. So please understand that I want you to always be safe. And you may or may not ever have your dog off leash in an unknown location. And if you don't, and that's your choice, that is okay. I don't want someone to have deadly trust. My behavior has changed over the years. Kaylee was the dog in my life of all these years that had the highest interest in prey. I would have never let her off leash in an unknown location. I just knew that about her, no matter how much I trained with rabbit scent in the environment. Keaton is different. I believe I could maybe go somewhere, be off leash, not in a safe area. But would I do that? Probably not. I've lost a dog early on before I was a trainer. Because of some things that happened, and I probably wouldn't do that again. So just be very careful, okay? You have to understand your dog's genetic predisposition. Kaylee and bunnies are very different than Keaton and bunnies. Before you even think about starting to train around prey, you need to have prior success with all of those foundation games that I went through. And there's a longer webinar on that Deborah will send you, and all of the recall games. If you have really awesome success there, then it's time to start thinking about training around prey. What's your management plan for training around prey? How can we make sure our dog isn't going to get loose and chase that prey? It's a challenge. We have to try to create an environment for success for the dog. So mindful of the 3 Ds, the distance from the prey, the duration, the time duration the dog spends near that prey, and then how distracting that prey is. I just said that, how distracting. Yeah, so be mindful of duration. It's also important to understand the basic motor sequence, predatory motor sequence in our dogs. The first thing that happens is the dog orients toward the prey. They eye it. The orient might have been also scenting. They see it. They begin stalking it. So they might start moving slowly toward it. It's here, after you've trained a recall, and even when you're training, well, not when you're training, I don't want you to get around prey right away, but it's easiest to interrupt your dog before they start the chase. Once the chase is on, all bets could be off, even with amazing training. They chase, they grab bite, they kill bite, and then they dissect it, and then they consume it. Kaylee is the only dog we've ever had that displayed every single one of these. She would orient toward bunnies, see them, stalk them, chase them, grab bite them, kill bite them, dissect them, and eat them. My little Australian Shepherd daughter. So they were, and all of that, because she did that several times. Talk about how much she'd been reinforced for chasing bunnies. So bunnies were extremely reinforcing for her. The biggest challenge when working around prey, it's hard to control the prey, right? We need to, for any other thing we're helping our dog become comfortable with and working around distractions, we can kind of control those. We can control other dogs or control their access to other dogs. But boy, prey, I can't hear deer jump our fence in our pasture. Bunnies come trotting through, raccoons and possums. There's a funny story about a possum in my book about Kaylee and the possum. Yeah, she got a possum too and killed possums. I could recall Kaylee away from deer, but I was working on bunnies when she passed away. And I'll show you how I was working with her. Since we can't control the living, breathing prey in our environment, we can control the scent of the prey. So I purchased some animal scent. Pretty much any animal scent you want, you can find. Rickard's dog training has it. So I purchased rabbit scent and purchased a rabbit pelt. And I planned to have scent in the environment during training. And I planned to have the pelt in the environment during training, not at the same time. Remember, before the dog sees the prey, they're usually scenting the prey. So scent is a lower level distraction of that prey. So you need stringent management, even around the scent. So I started with Kaylee by just putting one little drop. This is a 4-ounce bottle. I don't know if I'll ever use that in my entire life because it takes just a teeny tiny bit of scent. I put a teeny tiny bit of that on a Kleenex and just had it in my training room with her while I practiced these games that I have just described to you. All the foundation and focus exercises, the recall exercises, and then the recall games. Let me go back a moment. And it takes time, right? It takes time. I would use a little bit of scent on that and have it a great distance away in the room. And then I'd eventually get to where I would have the scent on this pelt and the pelt nearby. So be creative and think about using animal scent if your dog is really distracted by a particular prey in your area. This is a video of Kaylee recalling to me from deer. And after this video, I'll tell you how I started training around deer.
Kaylee is somewhere up in the pasture. I'm going to call her.
There she is, right there, little white breast.
There've been deer up there. Hold your ears. I'm going to call. Kaylee! Come, come, come!
So she chased the deer in the pasture.
Yes,
the deer jumped over
girl.
that fence that she was standing at. You can't see the fence,
pasture,
but there's a fence
screen.
there.
Little dot. Yay! What a good girl. Awesome, baby girl. That was fabulous. That was awesome. Thank you. Let's go.
So I'm either lucky or unlucky that deer jump our fence. So we've got, you see this fence is around our house and one of our barns. And then the acreage outside the fence is also fenced. So pretty much everything you see is fenced. The deer frequently, every day, jump that outside fence and graze in our pasture. So I've had the opportunity with that other fence to have deer in the pasture while I was working with Kaylee through all these exercises, the name game, or the check-in game, the name game, the chase me game, on the 6-foot leash, long line, and then off leash, because I could control her access to the prey even when they were there. Not so much the case for bunnies. So I could call her away from deer, but I had yet to succeed because unfortunately she passed away before I finished my bunny training with her. But I'm really happy to share with you that I'm starting that with Keaton. He's not so interested in deer. He's a little interested in rabbits, not as much as she was, but it's a really effective way to begin working with prey by using scent. If all of you are like me, you have busy lives and you need easy ways to fit training into your busy lifestyle. So here are a few ways that you can do that. There's active training and passive training. Active training is you're setting aside some time to work with your dog. You know what that time is, how long, and what time of the day. Less is more. Consistency is key. And of course, always end on a good note, end with your dog's success. Passive train is any other time you're not actively training. You want to catch your dog, get it right, reinforce that behavior. If you think about it, we might do 5 or 10 minutes of training, or maybe even 15 to 30 minutes of training a day with our dog, or maybe a few times a week. But wow, do we have an opportunity throughout the rest of those 23 and a half hours or 23 hours to reinforce all those things that we like. Reinforce what you like, and you're going to get more of it. This is an interesting and fun way that Rachel Thornton, a wonderful trainer that has worked with us, take some craft sticks and write your exercises on them. Turn on the recall cue, the name game, recall and release. Have 2 mugs, put all the craft sticks in 1 mug. And then as you get up and take a break from your work day or whatever you're doing, pick up one of those craft sticks, work on that exercise for 5 minutes, drop it into the empty mug, and then one exercise down that day. The next moment you have 5 minutes, pick another craft stick. It's a fun way to mix up your training and make sure you're not only practicing the exercises that you really like to practice. On our website, there's a blog post called Crafty Training, so feel free to read the details of that. Ways to fit in training during your normal activities. Anytime you're taking on-leash walks about the neighborhood or public places, like me, when I'm walking Keaton on a long line in the wide open spaces that are my property, or when I'm walking him at our river walk in our downtown area. Anytime your dog is off leash in a safely fenced area, wow, take advantage of that. You've got a safely fenced area. You can work on any number of these exercises. And then when your dog is mildly distracted by something in the environment, you can give your recall cue or say their name. And if they respond, reinforce it. If they don't, you know you've asked for a little bit too much too soon. When the dog is playing with another dog, what I like to do is wait until the dogs have disengaged from play. They're starting to be less interested in playing with one another. And then that's your time to start training, not when they're fully engaged. Same thing when they're focused on other people. And so here's Keaton and I at Tractor Supply. We were just, I don't know, I was out to pick something up and thought, okay, well, let's just do a little training. And I captured it on film.
Keaton? Yes, good boy. Nice job. There you go, kid. Lovely. That was lovely.
Just as I did in the pasture, I'm letting him explore and sniff, waiting for opportunities to give me offered attention. He snarfs up a little piece of dog food.
Keaton, this way. Yes, good boy. Nice job.
Didn't know what he was about to get into, so he responded to his name nicely.
Good boy. Let's go this way.
I praised him for that awkward check-in. So he's found those high-value, really stinky bones, right? I wait for him to disengage from scenting those
Keaton.
before I ask for name
what
recognition.
A good boy. Nice job.
I wanted to set him up for
That was
success.
lovely.
So that is the protocol for teaching a rocket recall. And there are 12 rules I like you to keep in mind. I'm not going to go into the details of each of these because I have a free handout for you so you can download them and read them at your leisure, but I'm going to quickly touch on them. First one is train it and practice it. Recall is a learned behavior, just like anything else you teach your dog. Use the highest value reinforcers for recall practice, and always remember that reinforcement makes a behavior stronger. So take advantage of that. Reinforce all check-ins during other times of the day. So any other time your dog happens to be breezing by you and checks in with you, looks at you, man, praise that and reinforce it. Never call your dog with your recall cue and then do something they don't like giving a bath or nail trims, because they won't, if something bad happens, something uncomfortable happens when they come to you, they won't want to come again. If you don't think your dog is going to come, just go get them. Don't waste your cue. And if you make a mistake on number 5, you now know how to save a recall. Find your inner cartoon character. Fall on the ground, only if you can get up. Never repeat the cue, say it only once. Never punish your dog if your dog doesn't come when called. I want my dog to always believe I'm the safe, wonderful person and not the scary, wonderful person. Remember that dogs are always making decisions based on what's safe for them and what's not. So even if your dog ran off the other way when you called, when they come back, I want you to shower them with reinforcement and praise. Give the dog a huge payoff. That goes back to the big party, the drawing out the length of time. Your dog gets reinforced. It could be tug. It doesn't always have to be food. Maintain it after you train it. You have to make sure that you move through those 4 stages of learning. And then you need to continue to practice for life, just like I didn't do with my mandolin. Play hide and seek. Wonderful game for you. Increases your dog's desire to find you. And play the recall and release game so that your dog's coming to you doesn't always end the fun. So I have a few things for, where'd it go? I have a few things for you. The first one is this link. It will take you to the 12 rules of rocket recall. You can keep these on hand for easy reading. If you just refresh yourself a little bit a few times a week by looking at these, it'll probably bring back things we talked about in this presentation and will help your learning of the process. Coming soon, hopefully in early fall, I'll have an on-demand self-paced online course. If you'd like to be the first to know when that course opens, please click that link and you'll also get the rules of rocket recall. For any trainers that I have with us, I have a rocket recall instructor's handout kit. So every one of those exercises, all 18, some of which are multiple pages, with the goals, all the criteria, and how to train it. I have those as handouts for you to hand to clients. If you'd like some savings on that through August 1st, you can receive a 25% savings. They're $199 and then 25% off of that. I've had some really lovely comments from trainers about how they've been valuable for their own clients. So please check those out if you're a trainer. And of course, my book, if you don't have it, it's available from Amazon, Dogwise, and Mungo Books. It goes into much more detail. And for those of you who have read it, you know the first half of it really goes into the detail on those concepts that I think are very important, not only for Rocket Recall, but really anything you want to teach your dog. We're weeks away from a brand new website. Boy, I said that in June, but I really think we are really close now. So we'll soon have a new website. Please do check it out. We have some new offerings. And one of those offerings is grief support resources. I've lost, it makes me teary-eyed, too many young dogs too soon. And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about moving through grief. I didn't think I would do this. And I'm launching into a 6-month course on grief companioning this fall and winter. So check out when our website is live, check out our grief support resources. And I'm in the midst of another book, which is really about transforming grief. I hope that I'll finish that sometime next year, and hopefully it'll be published before the end of next year. When our website is live, you'll be able to click on that button to be notified when that book is released. Can't leave you without some recommended viewing and reading, some videos on demand that Brad and I have done, Fabulous Focus, Rocket Recall, Dock Diving, and Stand-Up Paddleboarding. And then if you really want to learn even more that's in my book on how dogs learn, the book by Mary Birch and John Bailey, How Dogs Learn, is excellent. The Power of Positive Dog Training by Pat Miller. And of course, I have to include my book. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I will tell you, I'm not as active on Instagram as I am Facebook. Haven't made my way there yet. I hope to become more social media savvy, as I know many of you already are. So it's a wrap. Thank you very much. I made it in 2 hours. That was my goal. I'm sure there are some questions. So if you can hang around, I'm happy to answer questions. So I'm going to stop sharing. And my voice made it the whole time.
Yes, it did. Before people start fading out, fading away. I want to thank you. You are a real trooper. I mean, you had your hand surgery, you had your coughing, you had your mother-in-law die. It has not been a good time for you, and you made time for this. So really,
you're so welcome.
From all of us.
You're so welcome. As you can tell, recall is my passion. Training is my passion, but recall is my passion. And it's my goal. It was my goal for writing the book to help people learn that there's a bond-based way to train your dog to come back to you. I just hear so often of the shock collar experiences that people have had, and their dogs are damaged. The fallout from that is they're just damaged. And so I want people to understand that it really is easy. It's simple. It's not simple. It's easy, but it's not simple. You have to follow the protocol, right? You have to follow the recipe to the cake, or your cake's going to flatten out. But if you've got a recipe, if you've got that roadmap, then you're going to be successful. So that's my goal for everyone, is to help you be successful with your own dogs. There's nothing that pleases me more to see my dog with full exuberance running to me, to me. So I want you all to have that too.
I also want to thank everybody in chat. You gave each other tremendous ideas and support. So, but now we'll get to the questions.
Right.
you weren't ever using a clicker, and someone wanted to know about that.
Yeah. So, I use a verbal marker. Sometimes I use a clicker sometimes. A verbal marker can be as effective as a clicker. Well, I would say I use a clicker more for shaping, true shaping. But when I'm doing recall, I'm oftentimes, and more often than not, using my verbal marker. Yes. The important thing is to pick a word that you're going to use as your marker signal and only your marker signal. And it could be yes, it could be yep. I also use a tongue click, a palatal click. I talk about how to make that in my book. And that way I don't have to have a clicker on me. I've got my tongue or my voice. So either one works. Your choice.
Looking at the things people are asking for, everyone who registered is going to receive a video. And if you're looking for the code, the links, you're probably going to want to see the video again. But to get that, fast forward to the end, and you can stop on the slide that has the links. Okay. Also, I will be sending out the handout on the 12 steps for recall. I still have that from your last webinar. So don't worry about trying to remember them, or you don't need the link for them. You'll get it. Okay. Where's some other, a dog that is terrified of everything. And even if she tried filet mignon, she wouldn't be able to give treats to that dog.
Okay, so it's really good information for you about your dog. And I talk about this in my book. The protocol is designed for a dog who's already comfortable in their own skin. If your dog isn't comfortable in their own skin, then it's going to be really important for you to work with a trainer who has behavior expertise to work through fear and anxiety or whatever it is your dog may be fearful of. Unfortunately, when dogs don't take food, it's either because they're not great reasons. They're either overly aroused, and we need to move them to an area where they're not overly aroused, or they're overly fearful or scared. So the goal is to help your dog be comfortable with the behavior modification process in the environment that you need them to be comfortable in before they can learn. None of us can learn if we're fearful or anxious. So that's the reason your dog won't take food. Now, maybe your dog could do this in the house. Start inside the house. It may be a long time before you move through, or some period of time before you move through those fear and anxiety issues and can work outside, but you can work inside. And then it'll help transition your dog easier outside when they're comfortable.
For the chase game, what do you do if your dog doesn't follow you? I think you had some ideas on the video.
Yeah, so I would say up the value of your reinforcer. Be exciting yourself. Move to a less distracting environment. Those are the three things that usually always work for my clients. So, think about what your video yourself, so you can see exactly what's happening. What are you doing? What is the dog doing? Think about the huge range of reinforcers. So I've had to use things with some dogs like sweets. What's something, it's just, you guys won't believe this. Romaine lettuce. Swear to you. A client said, okay, I know he's not taking this meat, but I know I'll bring romaine lettuce next week. And I thought to myself, come on, the romaine lettuce isn't going to work. This dog loved romaine lettuce. So think outside the box.
Yeah, we had a student who worked for, what are they called? Those little round vegetables. Not asparagus. Never mind. Brussels sprouts.
Oh my gosh.
Love Brussels sprouts.
Oh my gosh.
And my dogs, yeah, and my dogs love carrots. They love beans. I haven't found anything they don't like.
Yeah, so really be
So,
creative, experiment. Cream cheese, oftentimes stinky things work real well for dogs. Stinky cheeses, stinky salmon.
yeah. Okay. Is it possible to have, for example, you have one cue for coming, Brad has another cue for coming, or does everybody need the same cue?
My favorite answer in dog training for anything is it depends. You have to train that other cue. But over time, your dog will learn it if they're always being reinforced. So Brad's recall cue was for Cody, here. He would say it really loud. He also whistles. He has used that same cue for Keaton. Keaton already has a nice reinforcement history with Brad. Good things happen around Brad. So it's pretty easy to train those cues. Just spend a little time training them. Just do like I did, pair the cue with the food, and that cue will take on value if the other person in your home wants to use a different cue.
If you're not sure if your dog heard you, would you repeat the name and cue?
So a good question for two reasons. One, if my dog is looking at me, I won't use my dog's name. I already have their attention, so I'll just say the cue. If I'm not sure that they heard me, I would repeat the cue. Yes. Because we don't know.
Okay. Someone else wants to know about an alternative to the long line for very, very small dogs. Even biothane long lines feel heavy.
You might be able to find at Home Depot or Lowe's, another big box store, a really lightweight nylon line that your little one would be comfortable dragging. And you would need to make sure it had a teeny tiny clasp on it too, because sometimes the clasps are too heavy as well. So try that really low in diameter nylon line.
You kind of answered
but let me
this.
Say, let me say though, you need to make sure your dog is comfortable dragging any sort of a line before you use a long line. So start with short distances. And first, when you're first holding it, you're going to gather it up so it's not all played out onto the ground. And just experiment with what feels comfortable and not to your dog. And if they're uncomfortable, move back to where they were comfortable with that line.
Okay. Somebody wanted to know if you told your dog to stay before positioning yourself for the recall. I saw you say wait to your dog and move back. I don't know if you want to get into the difference between wait and stay or not bother.
We could probably spend 30 minutes on that, but let me just tell you my definition of the two. I don't ever teach a stay. Most everything I do with my dog is just wait. So wait to me means hang out there until I give you instruction. Otherwise, you could sit, you could lay down, but it's just hang out for a minute and then we're going to do something else.
Okay. And what I always learned is that with stay, you have to go back to your dog.
That's true.
Release them.
Yeah.
Wait, you're saying, wait a second.
And I expect them, I would, if I were this kind of person, I would expect them to stay in the position I left them in, a sit or a down. But my wait is very informal. I don't care what you do. You could sit, lay down, you could look left, you could look right. Just don't move forward. And I'm usually going to release them.
This? Sorry. Can you do this with two dogs?
You can, but you need to train each dog individually before you then start training together.
Okay. That's what our brilliant people said in chat. Just checking.
Good. Checking me. Good.
What? And a dog with allergies, again, someone in chat said that what they should try for treats are things that have one ingredient, like yes, like what? Jerky, a heart, liver,
Yeah, I mean, you
ostrich.
really need, if your dog has allergies, you really need to talk to your veterinarian and understand what they think your dog can use. One of my classmates in nose work right now, her dog is allergic to, oh gosh, everything. The only thing this dog can eat is pork. And so, I mean, it can eat a few other things, but most every product that she feeds her dog is a pork-based product with no other type of meat involved. So your veterinarian is your expert on that. It could be whatever food you feed your dog. Maybe it's a prescription diet. You use the wet food for that for recall versus the dry food.
Somebody else wanted to know, are you training your dog from the moment you wake up? I don't mean training. I mean rewarding your dog for attention every time you see it from the moment you wake up until you go to bed.
Here's what I will say to you. I never miss an opportunity to say thank you to my dog. It may not always be with food, but if my dog, I'm always chatting with my dog. My dog is my most beloved being besides my husband. So, anytime he comes with me or near me and says, "Well, hey, buddy, thank you. Good." Yeah, a little scratch under the chin. But I am saying thank you a lot to my dog. I'm not consciously thinking, "Oh, I'm going to reinforce him every moment of the day." I'm just going to give him some love when he's near me.
And someone else wants to know, how do you know the difference between high and low value treats? And what do you do if your dog just seems to like everything equally? I think you probably cheer, but
yeah, it's, get the chapter on reinforcement hierarchy in my book on building a reinforcement hierarchy will go into that. Maybe that's a webinar I need to do for you, Deborah, because it really is outlined and very detailed in my book. But you're going to start experimenting with different foods and to see which one your dog likes. And there's some different ways to do that. One is, put a piece of food in one hand, a piece of food in the other, different piece of food. Which one does your dog go to first? Switch hands, because your dog might be focused on the right all the time or the left all the time, and see which one your dog goes to more frequently. I don't know, I'm thinking back to the presentation, and I don't remember talking about choice. Choice is really important with our dogs in general. So I'm, always give my dog a choice to end a training session, but I'm going to give them a choice about which reinforcer too, and that will tell you what's valuable. Another way to tell what's valuable, if you're in a low distraction area and your food isn't working, well, maybe you need to try something you think your dog might like better. So if you're using hot dogs, maybe try cheese. If you're using cheese, maybe try Vienna sausage. I'm losing my voice. Sorry.
Not surprised. It's been over 2 hours.
I know. I made it though.
People want to know about the type of harness that they should use.
Oh, there are so many wonderful harnesses available. The ones I happen to like myself are the balance harness, from Blue 9. That's the one Keaton wears. I have a rough wear for him. I have a freedom harness, but I tend to have the balance harness on him most often. Has a nice front clip and a nice back clip on it. But every harness fits a dog differently. So I really like to have a couple of different types of harnesses so he doesn't always have a harness hitting him in the same spot every single day when he wears it.
Okay. I think, well, I'll ask one more. Someone wanted to know, so a stay is implied following a sit type command? I mean, if you just say, stay, sit, well, your dog stay there is what she's asking.
I never train stay. So, Yeah.
But telling your dog to sit doesn't mean that your dog will remain sitting.
Oh, absolutely not. Well, it depends on what you train. It depends on what you train. You can train a dog to sit until you release them with another cue. In my world, I'm very relaxed with my dogs. If I ask my dog to sit, it's usually for a very short period of time. My own personal philosophy is we ask our dogs to sit too much. Why do they need to sit? Sure, we teach it because it's a wonderful thing for people to learn how to teach their dog. But a dog can stand in place just as easily as they can sit in place. And I think in general, just people, me, used to ask my dog to sit way too much. It's a lot of exercise to sit down and get back up and sit down and get back up, especially for dogs who have some age on them. So just be cautious on how much you're asking your dog to sit. Your dogs can stand for polite greeting. Your dog can stand at the curb before they walk. They don't always have to sit.
Okay, I know you're doing an online course, but your property is so perfect. Have you thought of having people stay at a nearby hotel and you have an in-person course?
You know what? Back in the day, in our training center, we did that. We trained inside the training center, then we came here. So we used to do a lot of that. But you know, our careers have changed, and now our focus is more coaching and mentoring aspiring dog trainers. So we do little in-person work with our dog training clients these days. So therefore,
do you have dog trainers come to you?
Those are actually most all of that's done online, Deborah. Isn't today's world amazing?
Okay. All right. Well, if you ever put your property up for sale, let us know, and I'm sure we can help sell it.
Thank you. You know, I have thought, several people have told me that we need to open it up for sniff spots so people could come.
Yeah.
You know, and
we didn't mention that to people. Sniff spot, you can rent people's private areas for your dogs. So if you don't have a good fenced-in area to work on recall, you can go to sniffspot.com and find somebody else's yard that they will rent to you.
Absolutely. You know, there's the same thing for swimming pools too. And there are pet-friendly swimming pools.
Yeah. What I heard, though, is that neighbors are complaining.
Is that right?
Because it's like a party.
But I've heard, I rented a pool to take Keaton to the, to expose him to water for the first time. Just Brad and I and our dog. But yes, I understand Sniff Spot is awesome. I've heard other people talk about how lovely it is. So look them up. They're growing exponentially, as I understand it, and new properties are opening up all the time. And who knows, our property might be one of those.
Let me thank you again very much, especially after the tough time that you've had lately. Y'all don't know that she wasn't sure she could make it, but we decided to, just assume she'd find a way, and she did, because she really wanted to do this for you guys.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Everyone else, we're going to leave chat up for a while, and you can copy any links or anything on there, or you can copy the whole thing. And Lisa, if you want to read your excellent reviews,
I've got to. I wish I could present and watch the chat all the time, but it would be really disjointed if I tried to do that. So thank you so much, everyone. I've just sort of been scrolling through. I really do, as you know, this is my passion. I started to say I could write a book on it, but I guess I did. So I love it, and it's something I hope all of you can easily understand and use, and above all, focus on your relationship with your dog and building that relationship. That's going to help you reap for success in everything you teach your dog.
Okay, well, go off to Atlanta now.
Thanks.
And and everyone else, please look at the rest of our August webinars. See you later.
Thank you, Deborah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.